Hey everybody, my name's Mark and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to go over how I made these 3D printed Arkham Knight boots. Enjoy. The 3D files for this build were purchased on Etsy from Products of Design. As stated in my other videos, I really like this seller and think they provide quality products. I'll have a link in the description below if you're interested in checking them out. This is what one of the boots looks like when all the parts are inserted into Mesh Mixer. There are a total of 35 different parts that make up each boot. Each piece will be individually printed on the 3D printer with PLA filament. It will take approximately 56 hours to print each boot. Rust-Oleum's double coat primer, silver and black metallic paint, and double coat clear coat were used to give the shin guards a metallic appearance. Metallic silver acrylic paint and a detailing paintbrush were used for the fine detailing. Here are all 35 3D printed parts of the right boot. Each one of these parts will be smoothed either by using a palm sander, hand sanding, or a soldering iron. As you can see, the soldering iron is used to smooth out the edges of the larger pieces and remove any excess stringing or small defects. For the smaller parts, it's actually easier to use the soldering iron to smooth the entire part than to try and hand sand it. The larger pieces were sanded with the palm sander off screen. Each piece that was palm sanded is then hand sanded with 120 grit sandpaper. The rest of the pieces that are too large to smooth with the soldering iron, but too small to palm sand, are hand sanded first with 60 grit, followed by 120 grit sandpaper. Each part has been sanded and is now ready to be primed. The parts have been primed and will now be sanded again with 240 grit sandpaper. This is done only by hand sanding. A palm sander is not recommended for this process because it can strip too much of the primer off the parts. The goal of sanding after priming is to eliminate any small defects or ridges still on the parts. Most of the print lines should have been removed during the initial sanding process, but I always sand one more time after priming just to be sure. Now that all the parts have been primed and sanded, they are ready for assembly. Some of the parts must be modified a bit for them to fit together correctly, specifically the upper leg pieces. This is done using the heat gun. The super glue is used to tack each part into place and then fuse together using the soldering iron. This takes a bit of time. Some spare filament can be used to help fuse the parts together. Sometimes super glue will work fine on its own for connecting the parts. One of the trickiest portions of this build is placing and installing the magnets. Magnets will be used on the lower portion of the boot to connect a few parts. Using magnets here allows pieces to rotate back and forth, giving the user a full function of their ankle. Magnets will also be installed to connect the front and back of the boot. This is accomplished by taking some spare 3D printed raft material to create tabs that the magnets can be attached to and then installed onto the boot. One side of the magnet will be attached to these tabs and the other will be attached to the back of the boot. This takes a bit of trial and error, but the best part about using PLA material is that it can always be reheated and mended in a different orientation. Now that the majority of the shin guard is assembled, the entire part is primed one more time, followed by sanding with 400 grit sandpaper. After the parts have been sanded, 2 coats of black metallic paint will be applied, followed by clear gloss. Now it's time to add some padding. A combination of thick and thin craft foam is used. The shin guards will be held on my leg purely by the friction between the foam and my pants. I want to place the foam so that the boot is tight enough to stay on my leg while I walk. All the other loose parts are attached to the black shoe. Any sort of black shoe or boots will work. I decided to use these old dress shoes because it's what I had available. I am using super glue to attach the pieces. I referenced the 3D model of the boot to help me most accurately place all the parts. Time for some fine detailing with the silver acrylic paint. Like I've said before, creating a worn appearance is a personal preference of mine. Just like the gauntlets in my previous build, the paint should be applied in areas where natural scuff marks would likely occur if the shin guards were to come in contact with something during a fight. All in all, I'm really happy with how these shin guards turned out. They fit my legs great, and I love that I can sit, squat, and move around freely with them on. Hey everybody, if you liked what you saw, please give my video a like and consider subscribing for more content. Thank you, and see you next time.